DMs, listen, we got to do something because these high-level players are out of hand. I mean, the stuff that they can do, the encounters they can handle, it makes me so mad. I put so much effort into these encounters. I throw one really good encounter at them, and then, lo and behold, what happens? They all supernova all their abilities, they beat the encounter no problem, and then they take a long rest. And then, what am I supposed to do? The same thing? Over and over and over again? And wonder why nothing's changing and why the encounters aren't getting more difficult? I keep throwing a more powerful monster at them. I mean, I threw one CR30 monster at a party of level, 12, 15? They handle it no problem. I just don't know what to do. Now listen, I know that probably is how you feel. But hear me out. Don't give up. I have 5 tips here, 5 tactics that you can use as a DM to challenge your high-level players. Don't give up. There are just a few things we need to change about how we approach high-level gameplay versus low-level gameplay in D&D, and we'll all be okay. No need to give up, all right? Keep your chin up, champ. We'll get through this together. Before we dive into the advice of this video, any of those tactics, there's one thing that I want to talk as sort of a cornerstone to all of these things. Whenever we talk about balance, it simply boils down to the player's available resources and the amount of obstacles you're putting in front of them. As long as the number of obstacles is equal to or greater than the number of resources, your players are going to feel challenged. Because when your players get to 0 resources, they're not useless. Things just get harder. Tactic number 1, multiple encounters. One of the best ways to challenge high-level parties is to wear them down with multiple encounters. Your players are powerful, but their resources, so their spells, their abilities, their hit points, they are not infinite. In any given adventuring day, even if it spans multiple sessions, start with a series of encounters that build in intensity. The first few might be easy for the party, but they still require them to expend resources, whether they be hit die, spell slots, their abilities, or just their hit points. And then by the time they get to the final encounter, that final challenge is going to be so much more significant because they're running low on spell slots. They're running low on hit points. It forces them to think strategically about what they're doing as opposed to just running in, zerging all of their abilities, just absolutely supernova, 3rd level smite after 3rd level smite your big bad evil guy, and then they're dead and around. What we want to do is stretch out those resources over the course of 4 or 5 encounters, especially for high level parties, or maybe just 3 really difficult ones. As DMs, we spend a lot of time thinking about the narrative structure of a campaign and the story we're telling. When we get to combat, we forget about that. Don't forget about the story that happens during initiative. There is a very clear story that happens in those moments. Think about any fight scene you've ever watched in a movie or read in a book or seen in a TV show. There's a very clear beginning, middle, and end. Why not stretch that out over the course of multiple encounters as opposed to one singular one? Like I said in the beginning, it works at low levels, it does not work at high levels. So just as an example for this particular tip, imagine the party's facing off against a horde of undead only to find out that it's just the beginning. They have to battle through this horde of undead to get to the front gate, and then eventually they can get into the castle and fight the big bad evil guy. They defeat the undead horde, they breach through the gates, and as they do, some faction or some group of individuals that the party betrayed earlier in the campaign flanks them. So now, as they're trying to get into the keep, on the walls of the big bad evil guy's fortress, they have to fight back against this faction that showed up that they're not ready to handle, they're not prepared to deal with. They finally deal with them, and then they can finally go and fight the big bad evil guy. By the time they reach the boss, they'll have expended so many of their resources just to make it there. It makes that final encounter all the more gripping and tense and honestly fun and memorable. Tactic number 2, we have secondary objectives. Now, don't make every encounter simply about beating the enemy. Introduce secondary objectives to force the party to split their focus and make tough choices. I already have a video going into a lot of depth about a lot of different secondary objectives you can do, which you can check out. Not there, there. You can check that out in the corner right here. Great video. I thoroughly recommend it. It's one of the most popular ones on the channel for good reason. Speaking of secondary objectives, on top of enjoying this video as your primary, a secondary objective for all of you right now is to subscribe if you're liking the video so far or if you like the channel so far. According to this data right here, there is a good number of you that aren't subscribed. So if you do like it, be sure to subscribe so that way whenever new videos come out, you are the first to see them. But to talk about secondary objectives very briefly, instead of having the encounter just be about killing the bad guy, there's something else going on. Whether that is protecting a VIP, disarming a series of magical traps, or even retrieving an artifact during the fight. These things help ensure that the party's not solely focused on killing the bad guy. They have to use their resources, especially when they're so high level, to do other things that aren't dealing damage. Instead of using a 4th level spell slot for Blight, the wizard now has to use a 4th level spell slot for Dimension Door to get the NPC out safely. One of the best things you can do with secondary objectives is to have them have additional consequences if they're not achieved. For example, during a battle with a powerful dragon, the party also needs to deactivate ancient runes to kill the dragon. Those are siphoning life into them and preventing the dragon from being slain. If the runes are destroyed, the cavern that they're all in will start to collapse. So now we have a secondary objective with a consequence. They have to destroy the runes, they have to kill the dragon in quick enough succession so they can get out safely. I mean, and if you want to do more than that, it's not just that secondary objective, there's a third one. In the dragon's hoard, there is this magical weapon that can help them cut through this bramble corruption that will allow them to kill the real big bad evil guy, not just their dragon general. You can see how by layering these objectives in the combat encounter, it forces the players to expend even more resources and focus even more on not killing the boss, but delaying killing them, trying to maybe CC them, if you're not familiar, to stun, to crowd control them, to prevent them from being able to take actions, reactions, bonus actions, move, things like that. And the focus is on completing those objectives before they kill the monster. Tactic number 3, this one is one of my favorites, and it is directly connected to secondary objectives. At high levels, it is very hard to threaten the players. So many of them have triple-digit hit points, and by the time you get to that high of level in D&D, it becomes a bit of a slogfest of back and forth, because it's no longer a goblin's arrow that will kill the players, but sometimes it takes like 7th, 8th, 9th level spells to be able to effectively one-shot a player, and sometimes that doesn't even happen anymore. And I'm not saying it should at that high levels, but there's no danger of that happening anymore. But what you can do is put an NPC or a location directly tied to the players in danger that they have to save. They themselves probably aren't going to die, but if they don't act quick enough, if they don't fight hard enough, someone they love, someone they care about will die. This is something I'm doing right now in my campaigns. The Adventures of the Salamander Coast and the Isles of Iberion, there are only 6 sessions left of these campaigns we've been doing for 3.5 years, which you should check out, by the way. You can do that right here, and wait a little bit, oh, you can do it right here again for Salamander Coast now. In those campaigns, because they've happened for so long, they've made so many allies, so many friends, they care about so many places and people, so every single session of these final encounters, they come to the table and I say, all right, everybody, there are 2 places in danger. You can either go here or you can go here. You cannot save both. And then they have to choose. They have to condemn some of their allies, some of their NPCs to death. Now, there are some few ways around this, which I've talked about extensively in the campaigns, which, like I said, you can check out, or we live stream them on Twitch too on Tuesdays and Saturdays for Salamander Coast and Isles. But at the end of the day, it's about putting somebody else in danger that is not the player character. Tip number 4, environmental hazards. A lot of times combat isn't just about the enemies, and it shouldn't be about the enemies in high-level encounters. You want to make the environment itself change. High-level parties are used to taking on powerful foes, but what about a battlefield that literally turns against them as the battle continues? This is where, in high-level D&D, you need to embrace high fantasy settings. Because if your players are still fighting just in a forest, around some trees, there's a river. At level 17 or 18, you gotta change that, okay? You need to change it so there's something else going on. This is something I talked about in How to Make Good Villains video about the environment that you fight your bad guys in. But even more so, just mundane encounters at high levels need to be doing something crazy, okay? Have 4 or 5 encounters on top of an airship where if a player falls, they have to expend a resource to save them, cast fly down and go get them, or that player is gonna die, you know? I mean, if you fall 5,000 feet in D&D, I mean, not only is your character out of that encounter for the rest of the time, but they're going to take a significant amount of damage. On top of insurmountable heights, you can use things like collapsing caverns, raging storms, or magical anomalies that disrupt spells and abilities. These hazards, they force the players to use new strategies and not just fireball, lightning bolt. They have to think about some of those other spells that are more utility and more situational based for when they go into these encounters. So imagine your players, as an example for this tip, are fighting up a mountain to try and slay a corrupted storm giant king. So they have to fight through all of these various storm giants, wind elementals, balls of lightning. They have to fight against all of these entities. And the entire time, the storm giant king that is corrupted is throwing these massive boulders down the mountain that they're fighting. That environmental hazard of rocks rolling down the hill, not only does it add to the encounter itself to make it more deadly for these high-level players, but it also gives the players some spite and some venom against that storm giant king they're here to kill. It's no longer just about the thing that he did to the village 20 sessions ago. It's now about, Jesus Christ, this guy almost got us killed the entire way up here. We really want to kill his ass now, right? Making your players angry at the monster, not at you. Preferably, it happens sometimes, but try to make sure that it's focused on the villain or the monster. It can really help inspire your players to even more want to kill that monster, aside from just because it's what they're supposed to do as the heroes of the story. Tactic number 5, and last but not least here, we want to talk about proper balance with action economy in mind. In these higher levels, it is imperative, it is critical that you keep in mind the aspect of balancing an encounter with its action economy in mind. This simply means that the number of actions an enemy can take on their turn is comparable to or exceeds the number of actions a party member can take on their turn. So if you pit a solo boss against a high-level party, especially one with a paladin, your villain's going to be dead before you can say roll initiative, because that paladin is going to third level smite, and there's a good chance if they get a crit, they might be dead, So we want to try and avoid that. And the best way we can is by adding multiple enemies to the encounter to balance out that action economy. So now, instead of all 6 of your players focusing all 6 of their actions at the same guy, they instead have to break those up. 2 can go against the big bad evil guy to focus him down, while the other 4 need to be spread out for the brutes, for the scouts, for the mages, for these people that are peppering the players with damage. You distribute the action economy that way. And then you also have monsters that are attacking the players, dwindling down their hit points. Honestly, this is a great tip, not just for bosses, but for all of your encounters in general. Proper balance in D&D combat revolves around 2 key factors: resources and obstacles. Resources are what the players have at their disposal: spells, abilities, hit points, while obstacles are the challenges they must overcome, whether it be the number of monsters that are there, the number of objectives that are there. All of those things combine in to be the total amount of obstacles. Like I said, if the number of obstacles and the number of resources are equal, then it is a challenge. If the number of obstacles is greater than the number of resources, then it is even more difficult. This is when you start to get into challenging, very challenging, and deadly encounters in D&D. Now, there's not a very good way to do this with math. I'm going to be very honest. The way I do this is I've been playing D&D with the same parties for, like I said, almost three and a half years now. So I know generally how many resources they have just by glancing at their character sheet. And I can use that to influence how I design my encounters. For newer DMs though, and for people that haven't done something like this before, or balance is a very big question in your mind, most quick and dirty way that I've come up with to calculate this in preparation for this video is for each level of your party, and for each number of party members you have, you multiply those 2 numbers, and then that will give you the amount of resources that your party has. So let's say you have 5 party members at level 5, that'll be 25 resources. And then for CR, while it is a flawed system, you can use it as a rough guide to say each CR is about 1.5 obstacles. So like I said, this won't always be accurate, but it can help you to start thinking about how to balance encounters by looking at the resources and adjusting accordingly. Because once the players get done with one encounter, it was maybe more difficult than what you anticipated, so you can reel back in the next one. Keep an eye out for your players' resources. That's what makes them so effective at killing things at high levels, is they have so many resources. A level 1 wizard needs to worry about when to use their first level spell slot. A level 15 wizard, they don't give a shit about when they use their first level spell slot. It doesn't matter to them. That's what we need to keep in mind. All right, so that's it. Those are the 5 tactics you can use to challenge your high-level parties, focusing on action economy, multiple encounters, secondary objectives, putting NPCs in danger, and using environmental hazards. Each one of those strategies will keep your players engaged and on their toes, and it ensures that no matter how powerful they get, at your table they will always be in for a challenge. So, with that, what are your go-to strategies for keeping high-level parties on their toes? I'd love to hear some of your tips in the comments, and if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. If you have a DM that maybe is struggling with prepping that you know of, share this video with them. Hope it helps. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you in the next one.